Well, Mercury retrograde's over, so how are we feeling? We're still in the post shadow. Mercury's still in Cancer, so we're just kind of like ironing out the last pieces of the retrograde issues. If you're joining me for the first time, I'm Sammy. I'm the owner of Infinity Aura Avenue, where I log in to chat to you about astrology twice a month for the new moon and the full moon. And I also have a shop online to curate all kinds of stuff for your aura, from manifestation candles, manifestation oils, to clean skin and beauty products to make you feel good. Because if you feel good, you look good. If you look good, you feel good. But if you feel good, I guess you look good too, right? It does is that interchangeable? Works both ways? Anyway, if you're not joining me for the first time, the last time we spoke, I did the astrology up until I think the 29th of July. So I'm going to start with the 28th and I'm going to take you through to August 12th, which is the new moon in Leo. I'm hoping to post this Tuesday, the 28th. We'll see how long it takes me to get it edited. But either way, I want to start with what the energy looks like on the 28th so you have an idea of the big picture. And then we'll talk about what the shifts are between the 28th of July to August 12th. So let's get into it. On Tuesday, the 20th, I have my notes here. Sometimes it's better for me to read from the notes just because, like, let's talk about my chart a little bit. I have Sagittarius and proving my point. I have Mercury in Sagittarius. So sometimes when I'm speaking, and I'm like trying to roll these ideas off, there's like 20 of them at one time, and they're out of order, out of context a little bit. I try to make it as clear for you guys as possible. When I write things down, it does help me to organize a little bit better. And I know that about myself because I know my chart. So oftentimes, if you see me looking down and reading word for word, my notes are better than trying to organize myself just by chatting with y'all. But I do add a little something here and there. Okay, so Tuesday the 28th, the sun is in Leo, conjunct Jupiter and opposite Pluto retrograde in Aquarius. Mercury is out of retrograde in Cancer. We talked about that. Um, Saturn has newly moved retrograde, and Neptune is retrograde also, both in Aries. Mars is in Gemini, and Mars is in Gemini square Venus in Virgo. So let's talk about all of that because what's going to happen is that's going to be the basis for the energy for the next 2 weeks, but it will shift partly here and there. So this is where we're getting started, and this is the base. Sun in Leo conjunct Jupiter is a feeling of being authentically yourself in very, very big ways. It's very expressive, very bold. It's more about expression and being bold than it is about thinking too carefully through things and being censored. And it's not even about not even being blah, 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 blah. Not even about being so correct. It's just about being you and showing up authentically. And this is happening on the opposite end of the chart of Pluto going retrograde in Aquarius. And this can a little bit run the risk of stunting your growth, because you're just so much like, this is just who I am, deal with it. So that's kind of like the opposite end of the coin where you have to be a little bit careful in this energy because, like, it is good to show up as yourself, but if you're risking the transformation, that you're also reviewing like how you've changed with this Pluto in in Aquarius. And this is also Pluto is a generational planet. So it's like you don't notice these things so much, but when it's retrograde, sometimes you get a little bit of a reminder of like how far you've come. And if you're just being so loud and boisterous, like this is who I am and this is who I'm going to be forever, and you're not paying attention to the ways you've changed and how you should be implementing that, that's where that can become a little bit of an issue. Mercury is still in Cancer. We talked about that a little bit post retrograde. So we're just ironing out some of those miscommunications. In Cancer, it's more through an emotional lens. You're ironing out these miscommunications. Sometimes you have to read between the lines for communication with Mercury in the water signs. And also, in Cancer, particularly, be careful of nostalgia and nostalgic thinking. So, when you're looking at these Mercury retrograde issues that you're ironing out, it's like you have to do that with the basis of like, this is where I am now at this point in my life, instead of like, well, I've come from here and that's what I have known and what I was dealing with. Like, it's because you can tend to ruminate with Mercury in Cancer, and it makes things like so sweet. The memories are more pleasant than realistic sometimes with Mercury and Cancer. Saturn and Neptune are both retrograde in Aries. Like I said, this is just a review of who you are, who you want to become. What are your responsibilities? What are your distractions? Where do you need to build foundations concerning these topics? And where do you need to see things more clearly? Be careful with distractions. Pay attention to where Saturn tries to remind you, no, you can't do that right now. And with Neptune, just be careful of overindulgences. You also want to check the house that Aries rules in your chart for a little bit more clarification on those retrogrades. And then we have Mars and Gemini square Venus in Virgo. This is Mars and Gemini is making decisions through thoughts and not so much actions, if that makes sense. The masculine energy and motivation is a bit all over the place. Okay. Mars and Gemini is, I like that. I like that. I want to do that. I want to do this. I want to do it. And it's just like spread out. So, like, not that you're not getting things done, but the attention is spread so thin. Sometimes it is hard to see progress with Mars and Gemini. But then you have Venus in Virgo, and she wants to be detailed about desire. She wants to be detailed about creativity. She wants to be detailed about her finances. And she's kind of at odds with Mars, who's like, I'm not about Mars is not about the details right now. Mars is about a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of what feels good and a little bit of what feels fun. And I think I'll try that. I think I'll try this. And Venus and Virgo is like, no, but I need this and I need that and I need it to be like this and I need it to be like that. And Mars is like, I don't think so. So that could be a little bit frustrating. That energy can get a little bit frustrating if you're thinking about those Venus and Virgo things about your needs and your comfort and your finances and love and stability, and you're trying to really unpack those things in an organized Virgo way because Mars is not going to help you get any of that done off of your checklist. You might get a little bit of it here and there done, but nothing like really completed. What I wrote is you know what you want, but the motivation, direction, and drive is scattered. And that's the energy that we're starting with. And then Wednesday, July 29th at 10:27 a.m., we have the Aquarius full moon. Not only is it an Aquarius full moon, but the sun in Leo is conjunct Jupiter, as we said. It was exact. Um, that same day, actually. So we're building up to that energy. But for the full moon, the sun is exact Jupiter. And the Mars Venus square is also exact. So we are feeling it on Tuesday, but it's at its peak. Those two energies that I just talked about are at their peak at the same time that we're having this full moon. Something absolutely needs to change here. You want to check the houses that Leo and Aquarius rule in your chart. So, like I said, the vibe is very similar to Tuesday, except that we've built up to this full moon, and not only are those other transits exact, but the moon was on the other side of Pluto. So, the moon goes through kind of like this dissolution, this Pluto transformation, this death and rebirth, and then hits a full moon. So there's some kind of like emotional trigger in the house that Aquarius rules for you, and then a release of that immediately after. And because the sun and Jupiter in Leo is opposite here, there's like a battle between how you shine and identify in the house that Leo rules in your chart and how that affects the way you fit into the collective with regards to your Aquarius ruled house. This could also be like you're just so rooted in yourself and your identity that you just force yourself to let go of what you feel like you should be doing to fit in. And like I said, this is a full moon and full moons are about releasing, so this is about letting that go. And then over the next couple days there's not a lot of big transits, so we're kind of like coming off of that energy because then the moon at that point full starts to get smaller. So it's just like a come down of that energy. And then Monday, August 3rd, Chiron goes retrograde, but this is a long transit. We're looking at this energy until January. Chiron is newly in Taurus and he's going to retrograde back into Aries. During this time, just take notice to the triggers that surround security, finances, comfort in the first couple weeks to months while Chiron is in Taurus. And then it's going to shift into Aries, which is linked a little bit more to identity. But these are both linked to early childhood. Check the houses that Taurus and Aries rule in your chart. And like I said, that's a longer transit. So you might not even notice it just because we're going to be in it for so long. That's the thing about the longer transits, and the generational planets, right? We talked about that a little bit earlier. The personal planets, the ones that are closer to us, when they go through these transits, sometimes it's more noticeable. That's why people make a big deal of Mercury retrograde because it happens 3 times a year. So you notice it more because it's coming up all the time. So then you have a planet like Venus, which will retrograde later on in the year, and people don't talk about it as often as they do Mercury retrograde because it doesn't happen as often. So it's not as noticeable, even though it is one of the more noticeable retrogrades. Mercury retrograde is by far the most talked about. Next, we're going to look at Thursday, August 6th. So, August 6th, the Sun in Leo trines Saturn in Aries, still retrograde, and Venus moves into Libra. I like both of these. I think this will be a nice, sweet day. The Sun trine Saturn is a quicker transit. Venus will be in Libra for quite some time, couple weeks. Sun trine Saturn retrograde is like you get to really be authentic in a way you may have found difficult before. But this could also be like people talk about Saturn retrograde like everybody's gonna get their karma. Not necessarily, but, like, you do reap what you sow, as far as, like, what you have coming towards you because of how you present yourself, right? So, because you have Leo here, and the sun is in Leo here. So this is one of the bigger days for the Saturn retrograde, um, as far as that reap what you sow kind of energy. But it also is maybe you do get to do something that you didn't get to do before because that Saturn energy is within, right? It's retrograde, so it's not as hard no setting boundaries. Although, be careful because if it's something that Saturn gave you a hard no before and you try to do it while Saturn's retrograde because the opportunity came up, this could be also like, did you learn your lesson? That's the thing about astrology. There's like a few different ways that these transits can manifest. On the same day, Venus enters Libra, which she likes it here, especially better than she liked it in Virgo. Venus in Virgo is kind of nitpicky, where in Libra she's more laid back. She's like just enjoying things. She's also coming out of that square with Mars, and it's still close, so the energy can still be a little bit tense as far as um desires and finances and creativity and like the way you get them done, right? There still could be a little bit of frustrating energy between what you want and how you're getting it. But we're moving out of that energy and moving moving Venus into Libra. Venus is less rigid and more comfortable and flexible, so she can play better with Mars in Gemini, even though they're still in this square. It moves a little bit different and the frustration between action and desire starts to lift. But Mars is still in Gemini. So this is just a lot of all over the place motivation activity. Like I said, because Venus is not in Virgo anymore, it's less frustrating because in Libra, she's more like, okay, we can deal with that. Then on Sunday, August 9th, Mercury enters Leo and squares Chiron. I would not be surprised if someone says something that's like really bold and out there and expressive that triggers your inner child, or you say something that triggers somebody else's inner child. Chiron's in Taurus, so this is relating to comfort, security, finances, material. Mercury in Leo is just more expressive than it was in Cancer. It can be boisterous and harsh, and direct. So there is a chance in this square that somebody says something or you say something to somebody that just kind of like hits a childhood wound surrounding those Chiron and Taurus issues. Then Monday, August 10th, Libra in Venus goes opposite Neptune retrograde in Aries and trines Pluto retrograde in Aquarius. Venus opposite Neptune retrograde is kind of confusing energy when it comes to finances, love, romance, creativity, and comfort. You might not really be sure what a certain situation means for you or its place in your life. This is not really the time for hard decision making because things are very unclear with Neptune, especially Neptune retrograde. And Venus trine Pluto eases the tension just a bit, but more in a way so that your intuition is locked in, even if consciously you're a bit confused. So lean into understanding by intuition and try to stay clear of making concrete choices. And you're going to see this energy in other transits as well coming up. So let's get into the next day. I think the next transit is literally the next day. Yeah, this is a big week. So um, things are kind of chill after the full moon. And then Monday, August 10th, 11th, it kind of turns up. And then we have the new moon in Leo, which is a total eclipse. So that's when things get a little bit. So Tuesday, August 11th, Leo Mercury trines Neptune retrograde in Aries and goes opposite Pluto retrograde in Aquarius. Venus in Libra trines Uranus in Gemini. That's going to be fun. And Mars enters Cancer. Okay. Let's start with Mercury trine Neptune. This is another disillusion transit. Okay, so this adds to the confusion from the day before. It's great for creativity and really hard for decision making. Plus, it's opposite Pluto. This is deep, transformative conversations that could be challenging to the way that you think. These transits, combined with the transits from the day before, combined with the Venus trine Uranus, feels like somebody, you or them, says something a little out of left field and reveals like some kind of secret that changes things, which is the lead up to the new moon and the next eclipse season. So this is kind of a big day. And before I said like the energy starts to turn up from the 10th, but when I'm looking back, it's really from the 9th because then on the 9th we have Mercury squares Chiron. So that's like somebody says something to hurt your inner child feelings. Then on the 10th thing we have Libra and Venus opposite Neptune trine Pluto. That's really confusing energy as far as love, romance, creativity, comfort. Is not, you don't know what this certain situation fits into your life. And then trine Pluto, I told you, eases the tension a little bit, gives you a chance to use intuition a little bit more, but it's still with Neptune involved, it's still a little bit confusing. And then on the 11th, we have Mercury trine Neptune also opposite Pluto. So this is adds even more confusion. Plus, with Venus and Libra trine that Uranus and Gemini, that's like, I'm telling you, somebody's gonna say something. Somebody's gonna say something first that triggers the inner child, and then by the 11th, there's another like trigger around the, like I said, it just could be some kind of secret that comes out that it's almost like somebody lets the cat out of the bag by accident, right? The first one is more like the first on the 9th is more unintentional, like they might not even really know that they hurt your inner child feelings, right? And then on the 11th, it's almost like this secret that slips out that nobody was supposed to know about. And then on the 11th, the same day, Mars enters Cancer. Mars in Cancer is um Cancer's the crab, right? So this is, and Mars is how you're acting, right? So when you're reacting to these triggers, this is coming from an emotional place and like reacting like a little crabby claw and then retreating because that's what they do. Pinch and then they run away, right? Be careful because with Mercury and Leo, this could be like a blowout argument, and we are in this energy for quite a bit because Mercury and Leo is big, fiery speaking, big, fiery thoughts. Mars in Cancer is reacting to these things that are happening around us um, through emotion and acting through emotion. You have to try to channel that energy effectively. And the best way to do it, to be honest with you, is to lean into the Saturn and Neptune Aries stuff, even though they're retrograde, because they are trying to, it's happening in Aries, right? So it's about the individual. And that's a lot of what I talk about when I come on here for astrology. I don't really get into the collective. I'm trying to help you reach goals here and progress the self. And Saturn is in Aries trying to tell you where you can and cannot do things, what your capabilities are as an individual. Neptune and Aries can make that a little bit confusing, but it can also bring with it the ideal. So you have these ideal ideas of who you could be and who you are. And Saturn's also there telling you, like, okay, we can work with that, but this is what you have to do to get there. So when you have this frustrating Mars and Cancer energy that's just reacting to things, you have to kind of dial it back a second. You also want to check the house that Cancer rules in your chart because that's probably where the irritation is going to come in. Did I say Mars and Cancer or just Cancer? I don't know. You check the house that Cancer rules in your chart because that's where you're going to see this irritation coming in to make you act a certain way in that area of your life that could be a little bit triggering, that also makes maybe the Mercury in Leo mouth fire off. This is tense energy. It's tense energy, and then we get to a new moon the next day on August 12th. There's a new moon in Leo, and that's where I'll catch up with you next time. We'll probably, like the same thing we did today. We'll go back about a day or so. Actually, I'll probably start with the 11th because that's going to be a big day. I know I'm looking at that, putting a pin in that day. Anyway, I hope that was helpful. I'm Sammy. I'm at Infinity Aura Ave. You can book me for a reading on infinityauraave.com. And there's all kinds of other cool stuff on there. I just did a restock of the lotions. By the time this video is out, give me another day or two. I'll have a restock of the candles. Most of my manifestation candles are up already, but I did just do also re-up of the oils. There's a confidence oil in there, there's a love oil, there's a luck oil. So take a look, infinityaurav.com. Book me for a reading if you want to get more in depth. Like, share, comment, subscribe, hit all the buttons, or just say hi in the comments. Bye.